Hey guys, so today I've decided to show you a little bit about how I create whiskers and little flyaway hairs, and to do that I'm going to show you it sort of demonstrated on my recent clouded leopard picture. So I find whiskers and these little flyaway hairs pretty daunting, because you're in essence putting a huge line straight across your work. And if you get that wrong, it can be a bit heartbreaking really. You've spent so long on a piece, so this piece took me about 8 hours in total to complete. So if I was to put a big line and it, came out a bit wonky or went in the complete wrong direction or wrong place, I think it'd be pretty upsetting. So I thought I'd make a little video just to show you that. To be honest, on this one I did make a few mistakes and how to correct those mistakes. So straight away you can see me going in with this Faber-Castell Pit Artist pen. That was because one of the marks that I made, it was too bright on the end and I just didn't feel it looked quite right. So the best advice I can give you is, again, just to really pay attention to your reference photo. You'll see it a little bit easier when I start to do his main whiskers coming off the right hand side of his muzzle across his body, because you can see sort of my thought process just in the way my hand moves. So really you have to look at where do the whiskers start. This is why it's good sort of to start thinking about this when you're actually completing your drawing. Because you don't want to cover up one of these little black areas where one of the whiskers is going to originate, and that's why you also want to put these markings in the right place, because you want to know where this whisker is going to finish. So like I say, you're not really going to see it much currently, just while I'm working on the left hand side of the face, because these whiskers are sort of going away from the viewer's eye. They're sort of receding into the background a little bit, so they come across a lot shorter, and I don't really have any reference point in which to end the whisker, apart from the fact that I'm coming to the edge of the board. So these whiskers tend to curve down and then off the board to the left, but they all originate pretty much behind the left hand side of this muzzle. So you can see that I'm just almost committing to my stroke. I don't want to be too tentative, because if I do that, the line's either going to be shaky, or there's going to be aspects of the line that, maybe are lighter or darker than what they're meant to be. So you do just have to commit to putting these strokes in. And there's actually quite a lot more whiskers than you'd assume really. There's a lot of overlapping, a lot of crisscrossing of these whiskers, and I think that's one of the things I see a lot in some of the work. The whiskers, either people aren't putting enough in, or they're not crossing over as much as really they should be. I think they're so afraid to get it right, and to get it wrong, and they're so focused on getting it right that they're almost too restricted by wanting the whisker to be perfectly straight, or not crossing over. But in reality, in the wild, the whiskers, they're not necessarily straight, they bend down. The leopard may have got in a fight, one of the whiskers may be broken, it may be bent, it may be facing the wrong sort of angle, it may go completely against the grain and go the other way. But all these little imperfections are what make your drawing look more realistic. And again, sort of rotating your board is going to be one of your best friends in this. You always want to pull your stroke towards you, you never really want to be pushing it away, and especially with whiskers, you want to put yourself in the most easiest position really, just to get that right. So if that means rotating the board to a bit of an odd angle, then really that's what you need to do. And to be honest, no one's really going to look at your reference photo unless obviously you're doing a pet portrait. Then maybe you want to get the whiskers and these stray hairs, the eyebrow hairs in the right direction in the right place. But you know, not many people are actually going to know about this reference photo. So if I get, you know, if I add an extra whisker in here or there, or I've missed out one, or you know, one's going in a slightly different direction to another, then you know, people aren't really going to notice. And one of the errors that I made in this piece was, I don't know if you just saw, but I attempted to go in with a thicker blade on my slice tool. Really, because it's such a small piece, I didn't really need to do that, and I made one of the whiskers a little bit too thick. So I just went back in with my Pit Artist pen and just sort of shaved a little bit off each side just to make it a little bit more narrow, if that makes sense. That's why I'm using this quite sharp blade, because if I was doing a bigger piece, or I was doing a bigger cat on a larger board, then yeah, I'd need to go in with a bit of a thicker blade, or a bit of a more angled stroke to give me that impression of a thick stroke. But I was a little bit nervous. I didn't want it to look too overpowering. I didn't want the viewer's attention to be focused directly on these whiskers. So that's why, one of the reasons really, I chose to use this thin X-Acto style blade, but the slice version. So this is when I start thinking about the main event whiskers, the ones that are going to be sort of the most in focus. And again, the best advice I can give you is just to commit to a stroke. So you'll see I sort of put my blade where I'm going to start, and then I look to see where that whisker is going to finish. Pick a spot on the board and then just commit and just go for it, just like that. Because like I say, if it's a little bit too far to the left, or it's not finishing in quite the right place, not many people are going to notice. The sort of main thing that you want to do is just to keep these strokes nice, long and committed, really. And I'm making sure that when my stroke finishes, I've tapered it off, so I've lifted the knife off nice and smoothly, just to give that nice point to the end of these whiskers. And you'll see that across these whiskers over in a minute, I'll add a few little stray ones going in a different direction like just then, just to make them appear a little bit more natural. And there we go. So I'm going to add these final few little cheek whiskers, just going off in a little bit of an odd direction, but it just gives, like I say, that extra little bit of realism. So I hope you found this short tutorial helpful, and I'll see you again in the next video.